What's up, metalheads? Welcome to the Scrap Metal Podcast, the show for the misfits who've been listening to the same music since high school. I'm your host, John von Frankenstein, and joining me today is my metal thrashing mad co-host, Chris. Chris, I gotta ask you, man, how you feeling?
I gotta say, I am feeling technically correct, which is the best kind of correct.
Oh, man, my old roommate Pete used to say that to me all the fucking time. You triggered me so hard just now. I'll just send you my bill for therapy.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'll Venmo you that. Yeah.
Thanks. Chris, does this technicality have anything to do with how you're keeping your heavy metal street cred?
It might have something to do with my heavy metal street cred. I have joked multiple times on this podcast that as a metalhead, I love to argue. And I am also a nerd, and nerds love to argue and correct people. And I've recently been watching the show on Dropout TV called Actually. Yes. And Actually is a game show where the three contestants have to correct incorrect statements about various like nerdy fandoms and things like that. But all answers have to start with the phrase actually. So it's kind of like Jeopardy, where like it has to be in the form of a question. It's the same sort of thing. Every statement has to be actually. And I'll watch it, and I don't know a lot about a lot of the things they talk about because a lot of it ends up being like video games I never played or like Lord of the Rings shit. But what's becoming like frustrating and a little surprising is that no one ever knows the answers to Star Wars questions on this show. Okay. And I was watching an episode just last night where no one knew the name of a Bacta tank, which is the medicinal tank that they use to heal you. Like Bacta is the stuff that they use to heal you up. Although someone did know that blue milk is not what Luke drinks in The Last Jedi. It's green milk in The Last Jedi. So that was one thing someone knew. But yeah, it's been surprising to see people not know the answers to Star Wars questions on this. And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like are they like past the point of Star Wars where they're like they're too deep in the weeds as nerds that like Star Wars is like, oh, if you're a Star Wars nerd, it's like intro nerd stuff? Or is it like
it's like very passé? Or
is it just like they're not interested in that? And which I think is probably more of the possibility, because if they're the video games they're fans of and like being fans of Lords of the Rings, it feels like they're more like fantasy nerds, whereas I'm like, no, give me all the fucking Star Wars lore. I want to know the names of every single fucking character that is in the cantina. Yeah, I want to know the names of all of them. I want to know that it's, like if that's Figrin Din and the modal nodes, like, and they're, playing. They did make jokes because they were talking about jizz music. And they Disney tried to rename it to like Jats or something like that. And people were like, fuck you, it's Jizz. Yeah.
Jizz Fest 2024, baby. Come on now.
Bro. Yeah.
The Montreal Jizz Fest.
No black lights at that show, though. No black lights.
No, you don't want to see that place light up.
Oh, well,
like a crime scene.
Is that a Deadpool joke? It'll light up like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Yeah,
is that from Deadpool? Yeah, but yeah. So I've been watching this game show, and like I said, as a metalhead, I love arguing with people. As a nerd, I love correcting people. So I've been watching this show, Actually, and it's a lot of fun.
I love that. It's like there's always, or I should say, there's never a bad time to correct someone. Especially when you're going to start it with actually. And there's never a bad venue in which to correct someone. Like some people might say, like, don't correct people in their own home. I would disagree. And I would say that it's completely fine. If anything, you want to assert dominance and correct people within the walls of their own home. And speaking of venues, we as metalheads love... No, I don't know. I was trying so hard. I was like, how do I segue us into this? You should make a compilation of all the times I'm like, I don't like any of this. Chris, you bring up one of the most legendary music venues in all of music, heavy metal and otherwise. That's the Cantina on Mos Eisley. And I would have loved to have attended, a Fish concert or like a Cannibal Corpse show at the Cantina with the rest of, the derelicts who visit the Cantina on Mos Eisley in Star Wars. And it got me thinking, there are so many awesome concert venues, both here on Long Island and in the city and just everywhere. Legendary venues. And venues play such a heavy part in the history of heavy metal, as well as just what it is to be a metalhead and to go to local and big event shows. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite venues, historical venues, little shitty hole in the wall venues, everything that we can think of, even the Cantina in Star Wars. Chris, are you excited to be diving into this exploration of our favorite venues?
I am so excited, but actually, Mos Eisley is the town that the Cantina is in, or the settlement. Okay. I'm not sure what it's called. Tatooine is the planet it's on.
Damn. All right.
There you go.
All right, Colin Robinson.
But yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this. Like you're saying, there's a lot of venues to choose from, and I've been to so many concerts at so many different types of venues. And I know even when we talked about live music in whenever that episode was, it's certain venues work for certain shows. I want to see a punk rock show in a shitty venue, and I want to see a big laser light show for a Trans-Siberian Orchestra at a sports stadium. That's kind of the feeling you want. And so it's cool that you can kind of run the gamut of those types of venues on Long Island and in New York City. So it's really cool that we have that selection of venues. So yeah, I'm excited to dive in and talk about these different venues.
I love that you bring up how certain venues fit certain type of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a shitty punk show, you want to see it at some random building where you're like, are we allowed to fucking be in here? Is there why is there like Post-its and like fucking crime scene tape all over this fucking place? It feels fitting.
Yep.
Like what is a kind of shitty venue that you can think of right off the top that you hold super, super dear in your heart?
I've talked about this show before, but when I saw Madball in Queens, that was a small little venue, and I think the venue itself wasn't actually shitty. But it presented itself as if it was shitty.
Oh,
because
okay.
It has I'm pretty sure. So I looked it up. It unfortunately had to close during the pandemic.
Blackthorn. That's going to be a common theme this episode.
Yeah. Blackthorn 51 in Elmhurst.
Oh, I fucking love Blackthorn.
Yeah.
That's where you went?
That's where I went.
I played there a few times.
I had to look it up, and I looked it up on Google Maps now, and the shutters are down, and it's covered in graffiti and all this and that. But I feel like it kind of looked like that when I saw the show. It doesn't look like much has changed since then. But yeah, it was a small venue, and like I said, I'm going to talk about another venue that, while at the time I really enjoyed going to shows there, thinking back on it, the venue really fucking sucked.
Yeah.
This venue was not a bad venue. The doors probably could have opened early because it was January and me and my brother didn't wear a jacket, so we were freezing our fucking asses off in front of the venue. And thankfully we didn't go the coat check inside because that was a mob scene after the show. But yeah, the scene fit the show that we were seeing. If I'm seeing Madball, I want to go to a place that's called Blackthorn 51. I want to go to a place in the middle of Queens that I take the subway and I walk, and there's a diner down the block, and I turn the corner and there's a building covered in graffiti, and there's some dude outside talking about how he regularly hangs out with Lars Fredrickson, and I go in and I'm talking to the bartender, and a fight almost breaks out, and then the bands come out and they play the show, and it's just this super intimate setting and this super cool, whole scene. The whole experience is awesome, and it's almost like getting the shitty venue experience in a safe space. That's what that show felt like to me, because as much as, let's face it, Madball is, at least in the NYHC community, huge.
Yeah.
Like they are monsters in the scene and in the genre. So no, they're not going to play some dingy fucking basement that's condemned and has rats crawling around. It's going to be a it's going to be a relatively nice and well-kept venue, but it has the look and the feel of just that, that bar and that club that you would expect to see a hardcore show in. And so that's a venue and a show that's always going to stick out to me for all of those reasons.
Yeah, 100%. I fucking love Blackthorn. I'd seen a couple shows there, and I'd played there a few times, and it was just, I love that you say that it presented itself as a shitty venue, because I get exactly what you mean. It's like, it's the punk kid with a trust fund of venues.
Yes.
Because it was like, it had that cool feel of like a shitty punk or metal club, but it was well kept. The bartenders were all real cool. Yep. The sound guy was super professional. The equipment, the back line was all fucking great. So like, whether you're there to see a show or to play a show, you're playing in a really good place. And like, Blackthorns would host all sorts of shows. I wound up finding out that a old coworker of mine was putting on, he never told anyone about this because this was like his side hustle, but he would run like a hip hop showcase at Blackthorns. And I invited him to a show one time, and he's like, "Oh, I know that place. I put on my show there once a month and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome that they're like catering to all different types of shows." And I love that. It's like, it's so sad that Blackthorn's like, that they had to close down. And like I said, that's going to be a kind of a common theme throughout this episode. But like, I love that right off the bat, we're vibing off of the same fucking venue. But like, I've brought up the Red Zone, my, another like Queens staple of my childhood. Fucking, I also love that you bring up a Queens venue too. That just makes my little Queens heart so happy. But so like, where you had what was an old discotheque on Metropolitan Boulevard, on like this super busy fucking street, and like, all of us, anytime we told people that we were going to the Red Zone, everybody was like, "Why the fuck are you going there?" Like, what? No one knew that it had been transformed to like this shitty little like metal bar. Yeah. And the funny thing was, when we would go there, I remember going to these shows, and like, at that time, me and all my friends were very much like, we don't want to see your shitty punk band. Where's our shitty nu metal band that's playing? Our friend's nu metal band and our friend's fucking hardcore band that's playing. And we would like, we would make fun of the fucking punk bands, because like, everyone thought that they were starting the scene at that time. And like, I didn't know what it was to be a part of a scene. I was too young to really understand, and like too sheltered to really understand what it was like to be part of a scene. So I just knew that I wanted to see more metal stuff, as opposed to like all the shitty pop punk and like, like fucking Casualties wannabes that were out at that time. But what felt more appropriate of a venue to see a show like that was this old church that we would go to. There was a guy in the Queen scene at the time, Jay Specimen, and his band Test Specimen. And his parents, I believe, had this little church in Richmond Hill. And we would go and like go to it's just, everybody knew it as the White Church. So we would go to these White Church shows, and it was just like the rec hall of the fucking church. They had a little stage, they had a shitty little PA, and it was just a bunch of like older punks, the stupid punk kids that would all go to the Red Zone, and then like me and my metalhead friends too. And we would just hang out all afternoon. So where like a lot of my friends that I talk to now would go to like basement shows and shit like that, we had the White Church.
Yeah.
And like, I loved going there. Like, I wish that I could go back and appreciate those shows even more, because anytime we went, again, anytime a punk band came on, me and my friends were like, fuck, another fucking, okay, yep, they want to be the Ramones. Okay, this one's got a Metal Zone pedal that he doesn't know how to fucking set. All right, this all sounds like shit. And then like a metal band would come out, and like a death metal band or something like that. We're like, fuck yes, finally. But like, I wish that I could go back and revisit those times and just really enjoy what it was like to be like, yeah, I'm here all fucking afternoon and all night just seeing all these different local bands and stuff. And it's like, it's so funny that you would have, like I said, I didn't have the basement show experience, but I got to have a shitty little church in Richmond Hill. Yeah. So yeah, that's always going to be a venue that's close to my heart. But we talk about like these real big stadium shows and stuff like that too. And it's funny because I have seen a few concerts now at Madison Square Garden, the Garden,
yeah,
right? The greatest venue in the world. And I would argue that the Barclays Center is maybe a better venue for certain metal shows because it's just a little bit smaller. And where I'm coming from with this is I've seen Black Sabbath twice. Once at the Garden and once at the Barclays. And the show at the Barclays felt more like I was seeing Black Sabbath. The fucking floors were vibrating and shit. And like, I didn't really get that at the Garden. I don't know what it was. It was maybe the seats were different or what. But it was just so odd to me because I've been to so many shows at the Garden. They're fucking amazing. And just this one, I was like, wow. By comparison, I had seen them at the Barclays the year before. And I was like, all right, did I enjoy Black Sabbath at the Barclays more than I did at the Garden? Is that sacrilege? Have you ever had an experience like that?
I'm not sure if I've had an experience like that, but I get what you're saying because I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if I've seen a concert at Barclays. I've been to Barclays for Islanders games. Mm-hmm. I've been to Barclays for Monday Night Raw.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen a concert at Barclays. But here's the thing. When the Barclays Center was built, I believe Jay-Z was like a part owner or something. And he wanted Barclays Center to be specifically designed for basketball and concerts. So for you to say that a concert sounded and felt better at Barclays than it did at Madison Square Garden doesn't surprise me. Because that's kind of what the venue was built for. And the reason that that's what the venue was built for is the reason why it was a shitty hockey venue. And seeing a hockey game there was not a fun experience because the scoreboard was not over center ice. It was over one of the blue lines. And if you were standing behind if you were sitting behind one of the goals, you couldn't see the ice in front of you. You had to watch the big off-centered screen to see what was happening right in front of you. So, the Islanders leaving there to go back to the Coliseum and now go to UBS Arena in Elmont, which is fucking beautiful. I love UBS Arena. But so I feel like I haven't felt that difference. But what is a funny story... Well, first, Madison Square Garden is beautiful, which I hate saying because I am not a Rangers fan and I'm not a Knicks fan. The only reason I ever have to go to the Garden is for concerts. And every time I go, I'm like, fuck, I wish I had more reasons to come to the Garden because I've gone there for like Bruce Springsteen concerts. I've seen Billy Joel there. I saw the Misfits there. You know, And the thing is, it's easy to get to with the Long Island Railroad. You just go up a couple flights of stairs from Penn Station and you're in the Garden. They keep updating it. So, like, I remember going there. The last time I probably went was for Billy Joel. And that now was probably like 6-7 years ago at this point, if not longer. And it was updated. The food was updated. The walkways were updated. Everything looked nice. The Nassau Coliseum was a piece of shit the day they built it, and it was a piece of shit the day they tore it down. So, like, it was so annoying to go to Madison Square Garden and see this beautiful venue. And I'm like, fuck, I wish, like, I had more reason to come here. But the interesting thing that I want to bring up about the idea of a concert sounding better somewhere is I love the venue, but I saw Manowar at the Paramount. And when I walk in, there's usually like these balconies along the side, like next to the stage.
Yeah.
No one was up there. There was all these like the foam sound like you would put inside like a studio. That was hung up there. And there was like curtains and shit up there. And in the middle of the show, Joey DeMaio goes on a rant about how they're the greatest metal band ever, because obviously. But then he he points out this stuff. And he's like, what I want you guys to understand is that we're not doing this because we're some band that thinks like, oh, we need the specs to be the way they want it to be. The way we're looking at it is that we want you to hear us the way we want you to hear us. We don't want to risk the sound bouncing off weird and you leave the show thinking, wow, Manowar sounded like shit. So we refitted all of these like foam sounds and had to buy more stuff this afternoon to make sure that this venue sounded the way we want to sound, so that you can leave the show saying, wow, Manowar sounded exactly the way I expected them to sound.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone doing something like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise me that it was Manowar.
Yes.
It doesn't surprise me at all. because I've seen shows at the Paramount, and I love the Paramount.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
the Paramount for concerts. And like that's truly something where it's the green M&Ms situation.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this seems really fucking pretentious, but it's only because the band is trying to deliver the absolute best to you.
Yeah.
Now, is it going to make a difference to the drunk Long Island dad who was like, blow your speakers? Yeah, I fucking love Manowar. Probably not.
No.
But it speaks to how much pride the band has in the performance that they put on, that they would want to make the venue fit their particular sound, that they want to be happy with the way that they sound for the audience. So yeah, probably a little pretentious, probably some prima donna behavior, but the intention is in the right place, right? I think so anyway. Yeah,
definitely, because I feel like I might have experienced this where like, and maybe it was just because I was on one particular side of the stage, but I feel like I've been to shows where I felt like, and again, it might have been because of the side of the stage I was on, where I felt like one guitarist was louder than the other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
and
no, I've had that.
My brother told me he went to an Exodus show and he couldn't hear Gary Holt's guitar. Like Gary Holt is playing a solo.
Yeah.
And he couldn't hear it. Yeah. And it's like, how does that happen at a live show where the lead guitarist is playing a fucking solo and you can't hear it? So when you have experiences like that, I get why Manowar is coming in and being like, nope, not gonna work for us. Yeah. Like we need to fix up your venue, so this way it sounds the way we want it to sound. Because honestly, the Paramount, like I was surprised that Manowar was playing the Paramount. Like I know in the United States they're not as popular as they are in like Europe or whatever, but like I feel like in Europe they play like open air stadiums. And here they're playing, it's a nice venue, and it's a relatively big concert venue, but it's not a stadium or an arena or a Coliseum or anything like that. Like, if Manowar was playing Madison Square Garden or Nassau Coliseum or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Them playing a sports, arena. Right. Them playing the Paramount, I was kind of like, this kind of shows that Manowar is not very popular in the United States. Yeah. And so that's why they're playing this smaller venue, because like obviously in a bigger venue, you don't have that option to be like, oh no, I'm going to put fucking eggshells on the ceiling of Madison Square Garden so that some dude in section 319 can hear my bass tone exactly as it's supposed to sound. Like you can't do that. But in a smaller venue like the Paramount, you can do that. And like you're saying, there's definitely some pretension there. But at least it's being framed as like no, we're doing this because we want you to experience the show in the best possible way. Yeah, it matters to us that you're able to hear us in the way that we intend. Yep. And like I'll give you
a recent experience that I had where the sound was just awful. And I don't think that this is so much the venue as much as it is sound design that goes into it, or just like the design of the stage. And that was seeing Metallica at MetLife Stadium, because my God, did that whole show sound off. You know, it's like it was a great concert. I had a really great time. I got to see Pantera, I got to see Mammoth opening up for them as well. And like it was a lot of fun, but there was so much echo. And there was just so much, I mean, granted I was in the fucking nosebleeds, but there was so much echo, and it wasn't just me. I've seen the comments on the YouTube videos, and in fact, I want to say his name is Chris Hammond. He is a sound guy from New Jersey, and he does these really cool POV, like front of house mix videos. I've brought him up on the channel before. I brought him up on the show before. And I love what he does, but he actually did a video discussing like when you're designing a stage and you're designing sound for a concert, you have to take into account the venue that you're going to be in and this problem with echo. And it's like it was just it made everything feel like it was awash in reverb and nothing sounded crisp.
Yeah.
You lost a lot of the definition of any of the music, any of the songs that were being played. So that was unfortunate, because it was something that I couldn't quite get past the whole night.
Yeah.
And like I still had a great time, but it was still like in the very back of my mind. But again, is it a little pretentious that Manowar would be like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and customize this venue? Yes, but again, had Metallica said, hey, I don't know that this is sounding okay. Is there anything that we can do? And like, I mean, what are they going to do at that point? Completely change around the way that their stage is laid out? I guess not. But it's just so shocking to me, because I mean, you know, you're someone that you're a huge fan of, Taylor Swift, played at MetLife Stadium, right? And like you don't hear anything about any sort of complaints of sound problems. And I really think it does have to just do with how you're designing the stage. And you just have to be aware when you're designing a show for someone how the audience is going to hear it, and that every member of the audience can hear it to the same level and the same quality as anybody else. But yeah, I guess like going back to the point of being shocked that sound is going to, that a concert is going to sound better at the Barclays. I did not know that it was specifically designed as a concert venue. And it's funny because they've got that one little weird like triangular section in a corner that always weirds me the fuck out, because it's like it looks super, super steep, and it's just like in the corner. Anytime I see a show there and that section is like within sight, I'm like, if someone stands up, they're just fucking falling forward and tumbling down all these steps. But yeah, man, I love that we have these bigger venues that we can visit. Like you mentioned, the Garden is such a legendary venue, and it is super easy to visit it, especially coming from, you know, Long Island, or if you're in the boroughs and you just take the subway out to it. It's so easily accessible, and that's really fucking great. But we also have these smaller local venues like we were talking about before. Blackthorns, you know, me growing up and having the Red Zone in Queens. Are there some other local venues that you can think of that you want to bring up, that you kind of want to highlight and give some credit to?
So we already talked about the Paramount, and I was very happy when the Paramount opened, because it essentially replaced the venue that I was usually going to, and that was the Crazy Donkey in Farmingdale.
Okay.
And
I have a feeling that I know where this is going.
The Crazy Donkey, like I said, I went to a number of shows there, and I always had a good time.
Yeah.
I saw Sum 41 there. That was a fun show. I saw Guar there. And
oh my God,
that venue
at the Crazy Donkey.
So like, what was funny about seeing Guar there is, so while Manowar spends lots of money to put up, you know, eggshells and sound whatever, Guar just goes to Home Depot and buys a bunch of like tarps and lays them down at the venues.
Yeah.
And we walk in, me and my brother, wearing our white t-shirts, of course, to a Guar show. And the inside is covered in like clear tarps because we know what kind of show it is.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. But it's funny how, looking back on it, there was things about the Crazy Donkey that pissed me off. But because I was going to shows, I'm like, it's, it's a shitty little local venue, whatever. But then I go to like other shitty venues that are run way better than the Crazy Donkey.
Right.
I'd go to a show, doors open at 4. More like 5:30.
Yeah.
This band, so I remember going, one of my friends was opening for Andrew WK at the Crazy Donkey. Again, doors are supposed to start opening at like 4. 4, 4:30, 5. My friend's band is supposed to go on at 5:30.
Right.
It's 5:15. They're like finally letting people in.
Right.
So I walk in, I go to the bathroom, I step out of the bathroom, my friend is walking on stage, and there's like 15 people in the venue.
God.
So I'm like, whatever, I knew my friend, I knew a couple other guys in the band, so I'm pointing at them, having a good time. They're playing some songs, this and that. After the show, meet up with my friend. We go to the Applebee's down the road on Route 110. And me and my friend's brother are telling him, we weren't let in the venue until like 10 minutes before you stepped out on stage. Right. And like his brother was pissed because he missed almost the entire set because by the time he was let in, the set was almost done. And it's like, wow, this is like, looking back, like, this venue is not run well. You would go see a show, a band would play for like 25 minutes, and they're supposed to have 25 minutes to tear down their equipment and the other team get ready, and the other band get ready. It would take double that between bands. You'd stand there for an hour with nothing going on because you're waiting for the next band to get ready. And then what was the most fun, I say sarcastically, is that the Crazy Donkey is not a concert venue. The Crazy Donkey is a bar.
Yeah.
That they occasionally hold concerts at. So the stage was just like wood laid over a bar.
Right.
Because I remember one of the members of GWAR pointing out the beer taps that were sticking out of the stage because it was a bar.
Yeah.
So around the venue, in front of the bars and in front of like where the grill was and in the back, there were these like pub style tables. So it would be like one long table with some posts or whatever. One of those tables was in front of the bar that has been converted into a stage. So what they would do is the wood top would come off. But there would still be 2 metal posts in the pit.
Yeah.
And they would try to keep people safe by putting like yellow plastic covers on them.
Yeah.
But those plastic covers weren't secured to anything.
Yeah.
So the second the band comes out, both of those plastic covers are thrown in the air and thrown around in the pit. And you've got people,
people are just beating each other with them.
They're like being crowd surfed around. So then you have security fighting to get to the thing to put it on the post. And as soon as the security guard turned around, someone else picked it up and threw it in the air. And the security guard would then end up punching someone in the face and dragging them out of the pit. And they'd be like, I guess we're not putting the plastic things on. And like, I've crashed into those metal pits. It is not fun. Like, it's the metal posts. So like, it's looking back on it and being able to go to a show at like the Paramount where it's like, if we say the doors open at 6, they open at 6. If we say a band is coming on stage at 7:14, they're going to be on stage at 7:14, not 7:15, not 7:20. They're going to be on time. And the Crazy Donkey never did that. They were always late all the time. It was terrible. Yeah. I loved it at the time.
Right.
Like I said, I saw GWAR there.
Because it was just a venue to go to.
It was a super easy venue for me to go to.
Yeah.
Bands would go there. You know, I know another venue we can talk about. A lot of bands I like that would go to a similar sized venue, but it's the Starland Ballroom in Sayreville, New Jersey. At the time, I'm not driving to New Jersey to see these bands. If Sum 41 is going to come to Long Island, I work in Farmingdale. I can
Right.
go to work and then go to the Crazy Donkey. When we were in school, Five Towns College was like a 10-minute drive away from Farmingdale. I could go to my classes and then leave and go to a concert. So I loved that I had this venue close by. Unfortunately, it was a terrible fucking venue.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd see, like, I'd only ever been to one show at the Crazy Donkey, and that was to see Envy on the Coast. And then I never went back. But I remember, like, just kind of like looking at the layout of the venue and just being like, there's something about this seems fucking wrong. One of my favorite venues that we had here on the island, and it's such a fucking shame that it had to close down, was Revolution Bar in Amityville. I loved Revolution. I often talk about how it's like, it's what you kind of think of, sort of like Blackthorns, where it's like, it's what you think of when you think of like a rock, metal, punk, whatever venue. And I got to see a couple of really awesome shows there. I got to play there a few times. I got to watch local bands there. And it was always so much fun because it had the feel of a sort of like city or Brooklyn style venue, but it was here on the island. It was more local, and the sound was run well. The bar was cool. You know, it was a really awesome venue to go to. And it's such a shame that the pandemic saw so many of these local venues, you know, close their doors. And the reason I say that is because I think you have other places now, like the Amityville Music Hall, that host local bands and that will host bigger bands, but it's a tighter space.
Yeah.
It's like a hallway. It's like a long hallway and a very small stage. And it's always fun to go there, but at Revolution you had a green room. At Revolution. You had like they had their own sound booth. They had a proper stage. They had a proper back line. Again, like, as someone who played at these venues, like, stuff like that matters. And that they had enough care to say, like, yeah, we want to make sure that you guys sound good. And things run on time. Like you said, things would run on time and things were kept to a schedule. And so it sucks to see that a venue like that had to close down because, like you said, it's not that I dislike Amityville Music Hall, but it's a very, very different feel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Amityville Music Hall, it's nice, and like you're saying, it sounds like I only went to one concert there, and that was my friend's band, like 20 years ago. Fuck, I hate saying that. And like, I remember it being like this small venue. I don't think it was called that. I think it was called the VP South at the time.
Yeah.
Which apparently the people who run it when it was called the VP South were like pieces of shit, but whatever. I don't fucking know. But I get what you're saying, that like, it's cool that you have this small venue there, that the location kind of has this history of like bands that have played there, but it's too small. You know, whereas like, you know, it's unfortunately I never saw a show at Revolution. I know a ton of bands that I want to see played at Revolution. I never went to a show there. I never went to a show at the downtown, but I know that those venues were more comparable to the Crazy Donkey in their size. And I would say they're even comparable to a venue, like I mentioned, the Starland Ballroom in its size, in that it's an in-between between the Paramount and the Amityville Music Hall, because the Amityville Music Hall is tiny, and you can get that intimate feeling at a show like that. And at the Paramount, you can get an intimate feeling with bigger bands, but it has a bigger feel. Like Slayer played at the Paramount. I unfortunately didn't go to that show, but Slayer played there. I've seen Anthrax multiple times there. I've seen Testament multiple times there. And Testament and Anthrax are also bands that I saw at Nassau Coliseum. Right. So it was cool to be in the Paramount, to fist bump Joey Belladonna, to catch a guitar pick from Eric Peterson. It was cool to get that intimate feeling in a venue that's big enough to attract bigger bands.
Yeah.
Whereas Amityville Music Hall is this small venue that, like, you're not going to get those kinds of acts at
No,
the
yeah. You're still
Amityville
going to
Music
get
Hall.
like you'll get well-known acts there. Like I know a lot of like hardcore bands that come through there and like death metal bands that come through there. But yeah, you're not going to get, you know, your big four
Yeah.
playing there. But yeah, and it's this isn't a dig on the venue at
No.
all because people flock there.
Yeah.
But it is like you said, it's the in between. We had an in between where it was like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to be going to see a show at the Paramount and not something quite as small as Amityville. Now you have that medium ground, and it's like a decently sized venue, a decently sized stage with like a full bar and everything. It's like you felt like you could really hang out there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But I guess, I mean, that's kind of just what you deal with. And of course the pandemic was one thing, but I guess in all of this, it's all to say that we hope that, and I'm trying to live by this more and more, that if there is a local show, whether it's your friends playing or whether it's just, you know, just a band that you've wanted to go see, and we echoed this sentiment in our live music episode, but go see shows at these smaller venues because you're just helping them.
Yep.
You know, it's like we've just seen just recently at the time of recording, St. Vitus in Brooklyn had to close their doors. And that's like a real hit to the community there.
Yeah.
Again, because that's exactly what it is. It's a hub for a community. It's a hub for a scene. And there are people that work there, and there are people who are involved in the scene where it's like something like that happens and it's a fucking bummer.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like people have that as like, you know, whether you want to call it a watering hole or whatever, you get a sense of community. So whenever a place has to close their doors, it hurts. It's, you know, it's something that really affects the community around it. I bring up, and I've brought up before, how, again, when I was going to see these like local shows when I was in like junior high school, I wish I knew what the history was behind the venues I was going to. And I remember going to Lemoore in Brooklyn a few times when I was, you know, 13, 14, an all ages show. I wish I understood the weight that this venue carried, because that I can't go to see a show there now. Yeah. When there's so much history behind it. You know, Slayer, there are videos on YouTube that you can see Slayer playing at Lemoore, Typo Negative playing there. You know, I feel fortunate that I got to see a lot of like hardcore bands and stuff like that, and my friends' bands and things like that playing there. But it was such a cool venue, and there's so much rich history there. Yeah. That I wish, again, that I could go back in time now with what I know now, with the knowledge that I have now of the history of the venue, of what it meant, and to just really be able to take it in, to soak it in while I was there. You know, it's like you don't get stuff like that back. You know, when places that are that historic have to close their doors, or even if they're not that historic, Revolution was such a cool bar, and the fact that you can't go there anymore really sucks, because it hurts the local scene. It hurts up and coming bands as well. Yep. Sure, it's cool that I can go see, you know, Between the Buried and Me there. It's cool that I could go see, you know, fucking just whatever other like bigger acts there. But it's also local bands, people that are just getting started. Like I said, I had played there a couple times too. And like, whether your band goes somewhere or not, it's the opportunity that you feel like, oh, wow, I'm getting to play at a cool, like, reputable place. Like, it feels like I'm playing at a real venue, you know what I mean? And like, so it sucks that now the local scene and these up and coming bands don't have a venue like that to play at. It's a shame. And I think, again, all this to say, just support your local venues. Make sure that you're going out and you're seeing your bands, your friends' bands, and just be a part of it. Get yourself involved, and, you know, try to set your roots at these places too, because, you know, even CBGB's closed down. So unfortunately, these places aren't always around forever. So let's just kind of treasure them while we have them.
Yeah, I would echo the same sentiment. We've talked about that I kind of got to metal by being a fan of punk rock, and I discover the Ramones and hear about CBGB's, this classic, punk rock venue, and I never went there. I never had an opportunity to visit or see a show there. And, just kind of echoing that sentiment of, if there's a band you want to see, go see them. I've talked about this show. I've talked about this show recently. I saw Overkill in the basement of a office building with a for rent sign in the window. And I misspoke in a recent episode. I had said that the town that was spelled incorrectly on the t-shirt was Hop Hog. And even as I was saying it, I was like, that doesn't sound right. And it turns out, after looking at the t-shirt, because of course I still have it 14 years later, it turns out it is one of the other hard to spell Native American named towns on Long Island, Patchogue, that is spelled incorrectly on the back of the t-shirt. And the venue in Patchogue was a place called Karma that is now a strip mall. Like, it's the same exact building, but it's a strip mall with a martial arts school and a dance studio and a Huntington Learning Center.
Goddamn.
And
not a stripper in sight.
Yeah. Which is funny because at the show at this place, there were some pool tables there, and there was a dancer who got up on one of the pool tables in like a leather bikini and leather chaps, and she was dancing.
We used to be a proper country.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, this was my only basement show because it was like drywall on the walls and like exposed beams on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Like it was and like what's funny,
you may be entitled to some money for having attended that concert there.
Maybe, but what's funny, I mentioned this, the show was supposed to be at the Crazy Donkey. This show was probably better run than it would have been at the Crazy Donkey, you know? But it was a shitty little venue with like paper lanterns from IKEA hanging from the ceiling that were all torn down by the end of the show.
Right.
And it was just similar to my feelings about seeing Madball in Queens. This was the perfect place to see Overkill. You know, because Overkill comes out, they play their first song, Bobby Blitz, I've told the story, is like, we don't know if we're even in the right fucking venue, but who cares? We're all here, let's fucking rock out and play some metal. And like, every metal show I had been to up to that point, whether it was the Donkey or whether it was somewhere else, there were guardrails in front of the stage, and there was security there, so any, crowd surfers would get caught by security and thrown aside so that they could, go crowd surfing again. At this venue, there was one guardrail in front of the stage and no security. So a dude is crowd surfing and then just gets dumped on the floor on the other side of the guardrail, in between the guardrail and the stage. Yeah. And like Bobby Blitz and Dee Dee watch this dude eat shit on the concrete floor. And like Bobby Blitz is like, yeah, it's a long drop from the top. Like, and like, so it's all of those reasons are why I loved that show. That was the show that introduced me to Gamma Bomb, who I still listen to and fucking love, There was a million bands there. Forbidden was there. Bonded by Blood was there. I think like Evil was there. Like it was a cool fucking show. But yeah, it's to echo that sentiment. If there's a show you want to go to the show. I was having this conversation with someone recently that there's been shows recently that I was just like, I don't want to drive to New Jersey for that. And it's kind of like, I should go to that show because it was the Misfits in Fear. And, when am I going to get to see Fear? You know? I
Yeah.
fucking love
Yeah.
Fear. Why didn't I go to that show? Because I'm a fucking moron. That's why. You know? It's... You know, I'm debating if I want to go see them. They're going to be playing at Madison Square Garden. Weezer is going to play the Blue Album in its entirety at Madison Square Garden. And I think touring with them is Dinosaur Jr. and someone else. I don't fucking know. But the two bands, I'm like, I don't give a shit. But like, I kind of want to see Weezer play the Blue Album. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep saying it to echo that sentiment. If there's a show you want to go to, a venue you want to go see it, go support the scene, support the bands, support the venue. You know, it's at Blackthorn is where I met the bartender who bought the t-shirt from Gary Holt and was talking about how cool Gary Holt was when he met him. So like it's, you get those experiences by going to these places. And like you're saying, when it's that local kind of small place, you kind of get to have that, you know, experience. When I go to Madison Square Garden and I'm tapped to pay and, you know, give a tip to the person who handed me my $25 beer, like I don't get to have a cool conversation with that person about how they met Gary Holt on a cruise ship. Like, that's not it. They're being paid minimum wage to hand me an overpriced beer. So, just go to local shows, go to these venues, support the bands, support the venues. You know, I will say the same thing I said in the t-shirt episode. You will not regret going to the show. You will regret not going to the show.
So we usually end our shows with a suggestion. And I mean, what better suggestion than what we've been talking about today? Go enjoy your local venues. Go enjoy the big venues. Just go to concerts. Just go and enjoy them. You will not regret going to a show, like Chris said. And with that, thanks for tuning into the Scrap Metal Podcast. The time has come for us to pack up our gear, but we'll be back to rock out with you in the next episode.
Stay metal, everyone.
Good night.